Hello. It's been a while since my last build video. With my workspace finally set up, I'm excited to start building and sharing the process again. In this video, I'll show you how I do oil-filter weathering and paint chipping effects. I'm using white, yellow, yellow ochre, scarlet, blue, and burnt umber oil color. And in my case, I use turpentine as a thinner to blend and soften the oil. Notice how the cardboard absorbs the excess oil. This helps the paint dry faster once applied.
Enamel paint thinner and oil-based thinners can damage certain stress points on Gunpla because the solvent can seep into tight joints, pegs, and load-bearing parts, weakening the plastic and causing cracks. So be very careful. Avoid flooding the parts with thinner.
Okay, let's dive into oil-filter weathering process. This is going to be a longer video, so bear with me. I want to show the entire process in detail with minimal cuts, so you can clearly see how the weathering develops. Using a fine tip brush, apply small dots of paint randomly. I'm starting with white color, focusing on areas where I want stronger highlights and a subtle faded effect. Now, little amount of yellow. Adding yellow ochre to introduce warmer tones. Just a few dots. Overdoing it can make the finish look too yellow. To create darker tones and shadow areas, I'm adding burnt umber. Only a few dots are needed. Subtlety is key for a balanced weathered look. And then, a few subtle touches of scarlet red help break up the tones and add a more natural weathered variation to the surface. With the colors applied, it's time to start blending. Lightly dip a wide flat brush into turpentine, then remove the excess on a paper towel until the brush is barely damp. Using light strokes, gently drag the brush across the surface to blend the oil dots. Oil-filter technique is a modeling method used to create realistic weathering, such as fading, dirt, and tonal variation. Quick tip, before I forget. For better oil control, apply a flat or satin clear coat beforehand. The surface texture helps the oils adhere properly and makes blending much easier, while a glossy surface makes the oils hard to control. Blend in one direction to create a more natural faded and weathered effect. Use soft pressure and let the brush do the work. Watch how beautifully the paint blends, even at high speed. Just use light strokes and avoid pressing too hard. Too much pressure can ruin the effect. Still too thick on top. One more blend to soften the effect. Now you can really see the difference. After blending the dots, gently feather everything with a dry, soft brush. That's the secret to a smooth, seamless finish. Now let's move on to the paint chipping effects. I use Tamiya medium gray for light scratches, then my favorite, Vallejo black-brown for those deep, realistic chipping. A tiny drop of medium gray is all I need for this small piece. Then I thin it with water. For this chipping effect, I'll be using the sponge method. Just a tiny piece of sponge is enough. I'm also using self-closing tweezers for better grip and control. Okay, let's start. Lightly dip the sponge into the paint, then dab off almost all the excess on a paper towel. You want barely any paint left on the sponge, so it creates tiny, subtle chips instead of large, messy blobs. This is the first layer for the two-tone chipping, creating a damage on the outer paint layer before the deeper scratches. Lightly dab the high wear areas where scratches would realistically build up. Use different light pressures to create varied sizes of chips. Just remember, go easy with the chipping. Acrylic paint dries fast, so mistakes are harder to fix. Start with a few subtle scratches first, instead of dabbing everywhere. Sponge chipping is a popular, cost-effective modeling technique used to simulate paint wear and scratches. I always use lighter shade of the base color for not too deep damage. In this case, I'm using medium gray because the base color is dark gray. One reason I love sponge chipping is how natural and random the effect looks. Just a few gentle dabs can instantly add realistic effect to your Gunpla. And now we're done on the first layer. Finally, the last step. Now it's time for black-brown to create those deep chipping. Same process. Dip, dab, and top. Adding a darker color for the second layer gives the chipping more depth and realism. But don't overdo it. Use less dark paint than the lighter chips. Not every scratch needs that exposed metal effect. A fine tip brush is usually ideal for adding smaller dark chips inside the lighter layer. But for this weathering style, I decided to continue using the sponge method. What we want to achieve with two-tone chipping is to create a weathered finish that looks more convincing and closer to real life. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. We're at the final part now. Let me show you the final result. Thank you for watching, and see you on my next video.